Pete Carroll continues to put together his coaching staff and now has added a national champion. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 3rd, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching us wherever you find your favorite podcast, that's awesome. You're checking us out on the YouTube page. That's big as well. Of course, the show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support, Raider Nation, and the job that my man Ari does behind the scenes each and every day. He does a fantastic job. Without him, trust and believe, there's no YouTube page. So shout out to Ari. He's on Twitter at Ari Producers. You can find me on Twitter as well at your boy Q254. And my special guest along with me today on the show, Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Scott Hogue. And he's going to be along for the ride today on the show. And this is a really exciting day, exciting show. As you can tell probably by the background, I'm not in Studio Q, but we're in New Orleans and we're getting ready for Super Bowl 59. We'll be here all week long, and we're excited about the opportunity to be here, but we're also excited about the opportunity to talk about the silver and black, and especially the new addition to the coaching staff, which is offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. We'll get right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. We'll tell you more about them later on in the show. But first of all, Ryan, thank you for joining me here on the show. This is fun. Thanks for helping put this whole thing together as we're here in the New Orleans Convention Center getting ready for Super Bowl 59. This is your first time here, right?
Calm before the storm too, right? You can just sense that the energy is going to be, electric very, very soon. My first full-on experience into Radio Row. I've dabbled a little bit at a few Super Bowls, but honored to be here alongside you, my mentor, if I can call you that, right? Big brother.
Whatever works.
And I'm excited to have a week full of talking sports, talking Raiders, talking Super Bowl. Go Eagles? Can I say that?
Yeah, hey, okay, absolutely. Right. I don't think anyone in Raider Nation would have a problem with you saying go Eagles, because I know nobody's pulling for the Kansas City Chiefs. But what everyone's pulling for is the Raiders to make good decisions. And you've been along for the ride with me all year long on Raider Nation Radio 920. I tell people all the time, Ryan Hogue joins the show, and I always bring nuggets to the show. And, hey, Ryan said this today. Ryan said that. Well, I'm glad that you're on the show because now they can hear it from you as well. So we found out Sunday evening, right, as we're putting this all together, we're putting the whole little setup that we have. As you can see our background in the back, we see from Adam Schefter back to the NFL, former Eagle head coach Chip Kelly is being hired as the Raiders offensive coordinator per me and Pete Thamel. And I immediately said, whoa.
Yeah,
that is big. Everyone assumed that Darrell Bevell was going to be the guy. Everyone assumed, Pete Carroll's going to go back and hire all his Seahawk buddies. This is not a Seahawk buddy. Chip Kelly's a big deal.
Yeah, and Darrell Bevell was my offensive coordinator and a good dude, but not somebody that's going to necessarily move the needle.
Right.
Chip Kelly is that dude. He is a national champion. He has experience as a head coach at the college level, a coordinator at the college level, a head coach at the pro level, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he kind of puppet masters that offense, because the roster I see assembled now doesn't necessarily fit his traditional offenses.
Right. No, it really doesn't. And, he just is coming off this national championship run with Ohio State. Again, like you mentioned, he was there, head coach at Oregon, put some guys in the league, including Marcus Mariota, who was a top pick at the quarterback position, the head coach there in San Francisco, the head coach there in Philadelphia. He's done some really good things as far as offense goes. And I'll tell you, as far as, seeing Chip Kelly's name pop up with the Raiders, I saw a lot of Houston Texans fans mad when they saw that. They thought they were getting them, and instead the Raiders doing. It makes me laugh a little bit, only because so many people just thought that, well, what's Pete Carroll going to bring to the table? He's a 73-year-old head coach. He might be a good head coach. He might be able to provide some foundation, but what is he going to do to add some juice to the Raiders? I think the hiring of Chip Kelly adds some juice.
It's juice, absolutely. Ingenuity is what I think of when I think of being ahead of the curve, and that's Chip Kelly. I remember watching the first pro game he coached as the head coach of the Eagles. He had Vic, he had Deshaun Jackson, he had LaShawn McCoy, and the first play of the game. I mean, I've never been so enthralled in a football game watching that first half. They just stormed through Washington, my old team, the Redskins, when I played for them, but this was after my time, of course. But yeah, I don't know if I've ever been more actually like invested in a game.
Right.
For teams that like I really didn't necessarily care about, watching that first half and being just blown away by just how creative and how different. Like, you remember they did no huddle the entire time. They were not even a sugar huddle. They were just boom, boom, boom. And I want to say it was 28-0 within like the first 20 minutes of the game. It was absolutely brilliant. And so I think he's ahead of the curve on a lot of different things. I remember him talking about a lot of nutrition and conditioning and sleep, things that were kind of unheard of back, 15, 17 years ago. Not necessarily unheard of, but not talked about, at least when I played, which was right around that time. And so I'm excited to see what he brings. Obviously, for being a first-year head coach or a first-year offensive coordinator with the Buckeyes, and to take them to a national championship, like that in itself is impressive. Guys that he didn't recruit, guys that he wasn't familiar with. Will Howard wasn't necessarily his guy, but he made it work. And I'm really excited to see what he can do with the Raiders offense.
Yeah, me too. And again, I mean, when you start to see this coaching staff get put together and you start to see what Pete Carroll's doing, he, as I've been saying many times, has provided us with stability. Just listening to his press conference last Monday, I was like, okay, there's some stability in this organization now with Pete Carroll. John Spytek as the GM, I feel like that they're going to make some really good selections when it comes to the draft, bring some free agents in, and clearly with Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, there's going to be some changes to the roster, right? We know that, but you're seeing how it's put together. Chip Kelly now is the OC. Patrick Graham returns as defensive coordinator. Robbie Leonard is defensive line coach and the run game coordinator. We found that out. Linebacker coach is John Glenn, and we've heard some really good things about what he could bring to the table. And then the special teams coordinator is Tom McMahon. He returns as well. So exactly what Pete Carroll said last Monday when he had his press conference. He said he wants guys that he's worked with, guys that he hasn't worked with, and guys that are on the coaching staff. And that's exactly what he's putting together. So it's official like a referee's whistle. Former Eagles head coach, former Niners coach, former Oregon coach, former Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly is now the OC of the Silver and Black. So coming up in segment number 2, what does that mean for the Raiders and their current staff? And of course, we got to get into the quarterback conversation. Is there a quarterback on the current roster, or is there a quarterback out there that would fit best with what Chip Kelly does? We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a title sponsor of the show, which is LinkedIn. And as a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means it's time to hire. You need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, well, LinkedIn will clock in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your jobs for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Right now, post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help write your job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Got my guy, former Raiders wide receiver Ryan Hogue with us, and we are talking about Chip Kelly and now being the OC under Pete Carroll for the Silver and Black, and we're talking about what that can mean for this Raiders offense as it's constructed. So, Ryan, as a wide receiver, former wide receiver, if you were to play in a Chip Kelly offense, how excited and fired up would you be?
Oh, man, I know it. I have to get my conditioning right because, it's going to be up-tempo. You're going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, look at the quarterbacks that Chip Kelly had the opportunity to work with. I mean, you look at Vic, Kaepernick, right? Mariota, who you mentioned earlier, DTR, all guys, and run pass guys, right? When you have run pass, right, we're moving to an RPO system. That's kind of like the new offense. Look at the Chiefs. The reason they're there, and the Eagles, both teams have that ability to do so many different things, and that puts the defense in a bind. When you have a quarterback that can run that and be consistent with that, right? I mean, Will Howard, not much of a run pass threat, but in the championship game, 16 carries, 57 yards, for sure. Right? I mean, so he used it, even though he only had 250 or some odd yards for the season. But so you see what Chip wants to do. You see that he specifically recruits and looks for a certain player as a quarterback, and but as a wide receiver, that just opens up so many opportunities. That's one-on-one coverage, that's up tempo, that's no huddle. That I love that kind of offense. Sign me up. Yeah, I'm not too
You're
old.
gonna get
am
some
I?
reps in. You're gonna
I
get some
a
reps
couple
in.
reps in. They might get tired.
Hey, you know what? At the end of the day, you can go in there and get a few reps
I'll
for
give you
sure.
a series.
You know, hey, look, man, I'll tell you it's funny though, because we're here for the Super Bowl 59. I think about Chip Kelly. I think about this offense. I'm like, man, if they had just drafted Jalen Hurts in the first round in 2020 with their second pick, they got Damon Arnett instead. I don't want to get going. I don't. That's another Ohio State guy. That's that Buckeye that was not the defensive back that I thought he was going to be, or I didn't even know he was, to be honest, at the time. But had to do a little research. I was like, oh yeah, that's not the guy. But that's another conversation. We'll get into the quarterback sooner rather than later. But when you look at the Raiders roster, I mean, you were in the press box with me each and every week. You saw Brock Bowers. You saw Jacoby Myers. Obviously, the running game, something that Antonio Pierce wanted to do, something that Pete Carroll's going to want to do. The run game is going to be very important in this offense. You're going to have to see backs that can get after it.
Yeah, and first and foremost, we need. I feel like Amir Abdullah is, for me, one of the most important re-signees because of his presence in the locker room. He was always the person, like from a media standpoint, he always wanted to talk to. You can just see that guys gravitate towards him. We don't really have that alpha, that kind of vocal leader on the offensive side. I would love to see him come back, and because he is a run pass threat, I could see him being the perfect third down back. Shady McCoy, he was the perfect running back for Chip Kelly's offense.
Right.
And you look what they did in Ohio State this year with the two-back system, and they rotated those guys in and out.
They were some dudes, too.
There were some dudes. And, and I think they're both dudes, but also did the offense set them both up for success, right? And the way they ran those guys and the way they utilized them in the passing game. And so I think having the ability to have that run-pass option, the catching out of the backfield and running the rock between the tackles, that's so important. So that's what I'm looking for. Obviously, we need at least one or two. I would say one in the draft, one in free agency to come in and really solidify that. But I would love to see Amir Abdullah, just because from an offense, like I'm looking at holistically, like we don't have a ton of guys that we can lean on right now that at that first mini camp, it's not going to be new guy that comes in. It's going to be the Amir Abdullahs that's going to be the vocal leader.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's going to be interesting to see how they put this together as they put this roster together. And the good thing is we have all offseason to talk about it and watch it and observe it. Obviously, the offensive line is going to be very important. What fits with what Chip Kelly wants to do, as opposed to what the Raiders were doing last year with their offensive line that they have. We know that they have a couple good pieces in Colton Miller, JPJ, who comes from Oregon, right? He didn't play for Chip Kelly, but he comes from Oregon. He was a really good center/left guard, whatever he decided to play throughout the course of the year. DJ Glaze at the right tackle position, but there's going to be a lot of competition on that offensive line. But I feel like this team will really go as that O-line goes, and they really adapt to this Chip Kelly offense with whoever he has in play to do it at the skill positions.
And if there's still a question mark at the quarterback position, and right now there's obviously going to be a question, right? And there's no surefire answer. Even if we get, Cam Ward or Shedeur, like we don't know that that's going to solve the problem this year, right? So that offensive line becomes so important. Right? You got to be able to give whoever's back there time.
Right.
You got to be able to open some holes. And in Chip Kelly's offense, it's not necessarily a power offense, right? It's going to be a lot of more zone, and you need athletic linemen. JPJ, perfect example. Jordan Meredith, perfect example of guys that can move out in space. The screen game is so important when it comes to Chip Kelly. I remember some of the funnest tight end and wide receiver screens coming from that offensive system that he runs. So it'll be interesting. I think that, he has obviously a vision in place. Spytech has a vision in place, and now they just got to go execute it.
The thing about it is, though, if you're, getting excited about the addition of Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, again, there was so many times, it's been so long where the Raiders offense has been pretty vanilla, right? Pretty kind of plain Jane, very predictable. And look, this is going back to, this is not a shot at AP. This is not even a shot at Josh McDaniels. This is going back to Gruden, right? I mean, Gruden's offense was very predictable. You kind of knew what he was going to do. Then you knew what was going to happen when, Bisaccia was the interim, and then McDaniels, it was pretty quickly understood what he was going to do. So now I feel like that there's a shot in the arm, at least, of there's going to be some fresh ideas added to the mix. And so it should again, in theory, it's only February 3rd. So they have a long time before this thing is actually put together, but man, they should have some, be able to keep the defenses off balance and not be able to be locked in.
Yeah. In the last 25 years, has there been really a coaching hire that got fans excited?
Right.
Whether or not Pete Carroll got people excited is debatable. Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator,
right?
There is not a single person out there that's like, that's a bad hire.
And on top of this, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I mean, the hire hasn't even been made official yet by the Raiders as an organization, but everyone talks about Pete Carroll's got a 3-year deal with a 4th-year team option. Chip Kelly's a young dude still. Chip Kelly, if things go right, again, there's a lot of work that he's got to do. There's a lot of success that the team has got to show before you start talking about what a succession plan is. But for everyone who chimes in and texts in and calls in and tweets and is like, yeah, but Q, 3 years. And I keep saying, well, can a coach get to 3 years first? Right? I've been in Vegas since 2021 and they've had 5.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like the math don't math there. Right. So can they at least get to 3 years and then worry about who the succession plan is? But if you're concerned about that, there's a guy that's been there, done that.
Yeah. And with a bad taste in his mouth last time, right? I think it was 2016 season with the Niners. He was a 1 and done, 2-14. But you look at that roster, they didn't have a guy that made the Pro Bowl that year.
Right.
I mean, you look at their receivers, you might as well put Ryan Hogue, Mr. Irrelevant, on that starting line because I have never even heard of half those dudes. And I know wide receivers. Like they didn't have dudes. Obviously, they had Colin Kaepernick. And but other than that, they didn't have a lot of pieces around him. So I know that he's hungry to prove his mettle. He obviously did as offensive coordinator. Now can he do it at the next level? And then from there, he's going to be, the kind of the it candidate, I would guess 1 or 2 years down the road. And unless there's a kind of an under the table deal, like, hey, we'd love if it works out, we want you to, take this franchise.
Well, and on top of that, if the offense really starts clicking and they start winning, what happens. I mean, other teams are going to come call it too. And so, I mean, it could end up being, a short-term thing for Chip Kelly. And hopefully if it is, it's because they're successful, not because, well, he just stinks and they got to get rid of him. Right. So that's the thing. But it's, again, I think it's an exciting hire. And for everyone who thought Darrell Bevell was going to be the end all, be like, okay, we see that. We see the writing on the wall. He was like the first interview. They didn't have very many interviews. I think Jerron Johnson, they interviewed over the weekend as well. But it was only a couple of guys that they really looked at, and they fall on Chip Kelly. I think that's a big win right there.
Absolutely. It's a big win. And, when's the last time that we've actually talked about teams wanting to poach our coaching staff?
Right.
It hasn't happened in a long time.
No.
Right. Probably since, I don't even know if it's happened really since you've been around, like where, they've been such hot coordinators.
Right.
We're usually the ones that are looking for those hot coordinators. So it would be nice.
Let's put it like this. You mentioned Turner, or not Turner, but you mentioned coordinators getting plucked. Scott Turner, who ended the season as the OC for the Raiders, he filled in the interim. He ended up going to the Jets as a passing game coordinator. So that kind of tells you, exactly. It kind of tells you, and you can find other coaches that have been on the staff that were on the staff, like Rob Ryan went to USC. Right. He's the linebackers coach now at USC. And I was a big Rob Ryan guy. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you see where these coaches are going. They're not getting promoted. They're taking other jobs somewhere else. And of course, Patrick Grant coming back was a big deal. So what's the big question now? All right, Chip Kelly is the OC. You kind of have an idea what offense could possibly look like. But who's going to be the guy under center? That's going to be the big question. Who do the Raiders need to get as their quarterback? Is there a quarterback that fits best with what he does? We'll talk about that coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the show, including PrizePicks. And, well, we're here in New Orleans. You can tell by the background. You can see us sitting here in front of our backdrop. The big game is almost here. There's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks. It's the best place for daily fantasy sports with over 10 million, and that's million members, and billions in winnings, and billions with a B. PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. And it works like this. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections. If you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. You know that's going to win. He already won. He already threw for a yard, and the game hasn't even started. Pair that with one more correct one, and you're definitely cashing out just like that. What do you need to do? Download the app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. I also want to tell you about Gametime. My mom likes it when I say it like that. Looking for tickets to the next big event? You can. Last minute tickets to the big game. You can go to a concert, a comedy show, any sporting event you want to. Maybe you're a Laker fan and you want to see Luka when he makes his debut. I'm just saying that's a thing now. Finding the right ticket at the right price could be a headache. But with Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It makes the best deals. It looks for the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless tickets listing. A lot of people use it. They get super deals. They go to super cool events like Janet Jackson on New Year's. That's a thing. Been there, done that, and it was a lot of fun. The best part, you cover Gametime. Lowest price, they have their lowest price guaranteed. So if you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with the easy cancellation options if something comes up. Ready to make your next event even better? Download the app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Again, what time is it? Game time. Shout out to moms. All right, here we go, Raider Nation. We're going to close things out. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast on this Monday, February 3rd, the first day of us on Media Row, Radio Row here in New Orleans. You know how things go when we're in New Orleans. You never know how things are going to go when we're on the road, but we have a lot of fun. And we're having a lot of fun today because we're talking about the addition of Chip Kelly as the Raiders offensive coordinator. So we know the players, Ryan, the skill players like a Brock Bowers, who was phenomenal in his rookie year, and he had basically you and me and others throwing to him, right? He had Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, right? They all threw the ball to him, and he still had a phenomenal rookie year record.
Coordinators.
Yeah, multiple coordinators, and still broke records. So now as we look at the quarterback position, and we know Chip Kelly is going to be the OC, we got to go rapid fire through some quarterbacks, and you tell me what you think as far as how they would fit in the Chip Kelly offense. So we'll start with the guys that are currently on the roster because, well, they're on the roster.
Yep.
Aiden O'Connell.
Not a fit from, right? I named the guys that he's worked with in the past, right? Kaepernick, Vic, DTR. It just doesn't fit just because he needs a guy that has the ability to use his legs to extend plays, RPOs, things that Aiden O'Connell really, at least for the limited, viewing I've seen, hasn't done. He didn't do it at Purdue. I just don't see that as a fit. It's like the opposite, hire if I'm Aiden O'Connell that I would want.
Okay, so if he can't, and we know that he doesn't use his legs. Aiden O'Connell is not that guy. Another guy on the roster who can use his legs, didn't do a lot of it this past year, is Gardner Minshew, who's still under contract. What about him?
A much better fit, right? Mm-hmm. I think he might be a salary cap casualty, obviously, because you can save some money. But if I had to choose between those two, I've always been a Gardner fan. I get a lot of flack for it. People hate on me for that and this and that, obviously. Yep. But I would absolutely keep Gardner, if you could restructure it or something like that, because I feel like he would be a great guy just to run that offense in a pinch.
Okay. All right. Here we go. How about a veteran that's a free agent right now in the National Football League? Desmond Ridder, he's going to be a free agent.
Okay.
But I don't think he's not worth the salt. I didn't even put him on the list. So
you said veteran on the roster. I just figured,
we'll do a veteran that's a free agent right now. How about Justin Fields, who's a free agent in Pittsburgh? They've got 2 guys. I'll talk about the second guy in a minute.
Yeah. So Justin Fields, I think, would be a pretty solid fit. I've never been a Justin Fields fan, obviously following the NFC North with Minnesota for years. I watched him, and I just don't think his passing acumen ignites my desire as a fan.
I've never been a fan of his arm.
I don't believe in him.
Yeah.
I don't believe in him as a passer.
He's a really good athlete, right? He can run for 1,000 yards, but what can he pass for?
Exactly.
That's been my big concern when it comes to Justin Fields. All right. Same team, another veteran, another free agent. Russell Wilson has familiarity with the head coach, Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I think that really helps and gives him, confidence. I think Russell plays well when he feels that mutual respect. You saw it not be the case in Denver.
Yeah,
you saw it be the case in Pittsburgh when, even though he got hurt and Justin Fields started them off with a 5-2 record, or whatever, they said, "Hey, you're our guy. You were going to come in," and he stepped in and played the position well. He brought his team to 10 or 11 wins and playoff berth. I think RPO game he can do. Does he extend?
How much of that can he do right now, though? That's my question. Like, at his stage of the game, how much is he a threat with his legs?
I've had a calf Achilles injury like he had, and let me tell you, it takes. I'm shocked that he came back as fast as he did. Obviously, he's not the same player that used to just run circles around people and make him look like he's playing flag football. But I absolutely think he still has the capability of extending plays really, really well.
Okay, so he's at least a threat. And when I'm thinking of a Chip Kelly offense, he can still at least be a threat.
I think he could. Yes, I think he could give you 2 years of great quarterback play under Chip Kelly.
Okay, that'll work. Now let's go into the collegiate game. We know the draft is going to come up in April, and of course there's going to be the combine where there's going to be so much wowing going on. The Senior Bowl just got wrapped up. Shrine Bowl just got wrapped up. Let's start with Cam Ward, University of Miami. What do you think about him in a Chip Kelly offense?
Yeah, so obviously there's 2 quarterbacks we're probably going to talk about, and for for the right reasons. I mean, both were Heisman candidates and this and that. When I think of Cam Ward, I think more of like gunslinger, big arm, and not necessarily a guy that is, he doesn't fit as well to me with Chip Kelly's offense. I would actually rather have Russell Wilson than Cam Ward in terms of fitting that offense. Now, I'd say like just in terms of the future.
Well, that's what it's about, is fitting the offense.
Right.
So,
yeah, I would say Russell Wilson over Cam Ward.
Okay. All right. So that takes you to the next guy who's, arguably going to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks taken, Shedeur Sanders.
Yes, that's a yes. I mean, flash and dash.
I didn't want to, influence the jury.
But yeah, he's a no-brainer for me. And although he wasn't, he had to run for his life simply because his offensive line sometimes forgot to block. But I just feel like the way his whole offensive system has been set up. He played under an NFL coordinator this past year. He played Jackson State, where they were doing gimmick style offense at Chip Kelly. Like he's played in so many different systems. He has an NFL pedigree. He would be the perfect rookie quarterback. If I'm plugging and playing somebody and saying, you know what, we're going to give you the keys, Chip Kelly's going to set you up for success. He's the guy.
Okay, I like it. I didn't want to influence you. I didn't want to lead the witness or anything. I tried to stop doing that, right? I tried to stop being that guy. So I wanted to hear from you. But yeah, I'm Team Shedeur as well. How about this guy? He played under Chip Kelly, won a national championship. How about Will Howard? You mentioned him earlier in the show.
Threw for over 4,000 yards, ran for 250. I'm not as high on Will Howard as some people are, right? I like some other young quarterbacks in particular. Obviously, the familiarity, but I don't know that Chip Kelly's offensive system from Ohio State is going to be the Raiders' offensive system, right? I think he's going to be more towards what he did in Philly and wanting to bring in guys, a speed guy, a back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's going to utilize Brock Bowers in so many ways and creative. I could see him having 130 catches next year.
Exciting.
Right? And I just don't feel like Will Howard seems to me, he's kind of like Aiden O'Connell to me, like a guy that's a kind of a career journeyman backup. Will do the job. If you need to plug and play, you're not going to necessarily skip a beat, but is he going to, create havoc to the defense? No, I don't think he's going to put any fear in. Shedeur Sanders with Chip Kelly, that puts fear in people.
Oh yeah, I'm sold already. I'm sold on Shedeur. Like I said, I don't want to lead the audience. I don't want to lead the witness. I just want to get your thoughts on these different quarterbacks. But yeah, I'm definitely sold on Shedeur. I think he'd be really good. All right, so that's going to lead me to the last one. And our colleague Vinny Bonsignore works with me on Raider Nation Radio 920. Obviously works with you as well, and then does the Las Vegas Review Journal. He just saw this guy out close and personal at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
I love the pause that you're like, I don't know.
I love Vinny. Right. And I don't want to throw shade on anything he says, because everything he said to me, he's helped me tremendously in my career. And also just what he usually breaks is correct. I disagree with him on Jalen Milroe.
Okay.
I will say this.
And I'm an Alabama fan, and I agree with that.
Yeah. Jalen Key, who was Mr. Irrelevant this past year and played with Jalen last year, he told me that Jalen Milroe was better than J.J. McCarthy. Now, there's the jury's out on whether J.J. McCarthy. I don't think he's necessarily an NFL starting quarterback and is going to be an amazing superstar. But that tells me something. He also told me that Brock Bowers was the only guy in college football that he couldn't guard.
I remember that. You told me about that immediately after he told you that.
He put me on notice with Brock. But so all that to say, yes, Jalen, I think could fit. But again, I just don't see him similar to Justin Fields, how you see him.
Yeah.
It's just his footwork is so poor. You have in the NFL that becomes increasingly they see that and it's visible when you have bad footwork, and his pocket presence to throw the ball. I mean, he's one hopping at the Senior Bowl. I don't like. He makes some splash plays certainly, but so does Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Milroe is a phenomenal athlete. I mean, there's one game against LSU, he ran for 4 touchdowns and 185 yards.
Right.
But he didn't throw worth a salt, right? And that's the thing. You can do it with your legs, and that's great. But in crunch time, as you know, you played in the league. I did not. You have to be able to throw. You have to be able to win with your arm. And I just don't know. He's got the deep ball. He's great with the deep ball. But it's the short, intermediate, on-time passes that he doesn't do. And when he makes a turnover, creates a turnover, throws a pick, a second one's coming. A third one's coming. A fourth one's coming. It's a snowball effect.
And I'll say that I saw that same thing out of Josh Allen his first 2 years, because I was following the Patriots. I didn't miss a game, and I watched Josh Allen all the time. He was horrible from the pocket. And then, he got some confidence. He got the right coordinators around him. He got the right playmakers, and he figured it out. Now, will a team be patient enough for Jalen to get to that point? Will he ever beat Josh Allen? I don't think so. But,
right.
Josh Allen, I will say, from where he started coming out of Wyoming to where he is now, like he has learned that. So Vinny might be onto something, but I personally, when I watch it, I'm staying away from drafting that guy.
All right, so here we go. We're going to close it out right now. I got 8 quarterbacks on the board. If you had to take 3 guys that you would say would fit with Chip Kelly, Shedeur Sanders, we agree on.
Shedeur, absolutely.
All right, he's number 1. Cam Ward, yes or no?
Yes.
That's a no. Will Howard?
No.
Aiden O'Connell?
No.
Justin Fields?
No.
Russell Wilson?
Yes.
Gardner Minshew? Maybe.
As a backup.
Okay, and then Jalen Milroe? Okay, there you go. So I guess at the end of the day, Raider Nation, what we're trying to tell you, Shedeur Sanders makes a lot of sense. Russell Wilson makes a lot of sense. And everyone else is probably either a backup. Cam Ward makes sense as well, just because he's going to be a top quarterback, but it probably would be a little bit longer for him to fit in what we believe Chip Kelly is going to want to do in the NFL. Well, there you go, man. Just like this. It's a wrap. When Doc says it's a wrap, it's a wrap. Just like that. So this is Ryan Hogue, former Raiders wide receiver. He was drafted Mr. Irrelevant back in 2003. We do a segment twice a week on Raider Nation Radio 920 called Nothing's Irrelevant. It's fantastic. And he's here all week long with us here on Radio Row. And so, yeah, we're gonna get into some stuff. We're gonna get into some things. Who knows who we're gonna see? Your colleagues or your former teammates. We'll have a lot that we'll bring to the table all week long here from New Orleans. But man, thanks for hopping on real quick just to break down this Chip Kelly conversation. When it broke, it was some big news. So appreciate you.
Hey, my pleasure. Pete Carroll, I'm excited, but that didn't move like my excitement. This hire, Chip Kelly, right? 13th best offense last year in college football, and they had one of the best defenses as well. Like 260 yards of passing, 160 yards of rushing. Like they did it both ways.
Yeah.
Balance. I love it. Can't wait to see them now, put and plug the pieces in. And we got the most cap space. We got 29 free agents. Like they can literally bring in an entire new team.
They could
offensive, quickly, we got 4 guys that 2 offensive linemen and a tight end that we for sure want to stick, and a receiver, Jacoby. Other than that, we got 7 spots. Like who knows? Like that's what's exciting.
And like 10 draft picks at least, right? Yep. At least 10 draft picks, over $100 million in cap space. Coaching staff is being turned around. This is going to be fun. Obviously, we know that it's Tom Brady's baby that he's trying to build as well, put his thumbprint on it. So we'll see what's next, because that's the question. What's next? They got a lot to still do. There's a lot of work to do, but we'll be on Radio Row, and of course, we'll bring it to you each and every day. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.
Go Raiders.